Alright, Travis Wayne Goodsell. This is comment replies for only Amanda this time, it looks like. You can click over to published and then back to held for review. Oh, Janet's back. Hey, Janet. Long time. How you been? Yes, he did. Isn't that awesome? Alrighty. Alrighty. So back to Amanda. Back to Amanda. My goodness, Amanda. Alright. I went to the Stellarium this time to get snapshots of what you are talking about, though not correctly talking about, which is causing me confusion. But with your one comment about Jupiter and Saturn taking over each other on the solstice, now I understand. The solstice is on Monday, right? Yeah, 21st on Monday. So wouldn't that be nice? So again, let me explain what I covered in the last video that I'm uploading on my Movie Maker. Is that Mars is Russell M. Nelson, Mercury is Trump. I'm not making these up. These are what the signs indicated with the events on Earth. That's how I determined who is who. Venus is the Bergamite Mormon Church. And the falling star. Jupiter is Doctrine and Covenants, section 103, verse 16. The male Mormon, who is a man like Moses, to lead the Bergamite saints in an exodus to hopefully the promised land of Zion, rather than to the complete and utter entire destruction of America. And so the signs in the heaven go back to the tetrad lunar eclipses of 2014-2015, where 3 apostles died, because they're the 3 that are needed for the sign of the Son of Man. And the total solar eclipse in 2017, 21st of August, that started it all off as the first year of Trump's rule. Puppet King of Russia was that year also. Book of Mormon tells us all this. And so Jupiter was conceived on the supermoon in November 2016, after the election. And I'm kind of disappointed with the news for acknowledging that Trump won that election. He did not win. Russia rigged it. It was a fraudulent election. That's why I made the sign for my website that the church shut down, of referring to Trump as a hashtag, or not a hashtag, an asterisk. And so in your comments that I'm starting off here, you were wanting to know the significance of the first great conjunction in Aquarius being on winter solstice. I still can't figure out what you're talking about. There is no conjunction in Aquarius on the winter solstice this year. The conjunction that is of significance occurs on the first one is on the 12th. The moon and Venus are right there together in Virgo. So that one's going to be pretty cool. But the one you eventually talk about is Jupiter and Saturn being like way close together. And so that's where I told you that Saturn is the representation of Pharaoh. Although Pharaoh is a dual role in the Exodus story, because the original Egyptian tale from which it comes from is that Pharaoh is a composite of both Set and Amun-Ra. Amun-Ra is the one who judges the contest between Horus and his uncle Set. Set is the one who murdered Osiris, took over the kingdom. And so Horus comes back and says, I'm the rightful heir to the throne, not you. And so Amun-Ra steps in to say, okay, I will be the judge of this contest to see who is the rightful pharaoh for the throne. And so this is where Armageddon and the end of the world and all the signs in the latter days come from, is this Egyptian story. As Horus's right eye is plucked out first, and then his left eye later on in the battle. And so when Samson has his eyes plucked out, as Bruce R. McConkie refuses to acknowledge that he was chained to the temple pillars, he calls it a building. It's the temple, Bruce. Why won't you call it the temple? Samson brought down the temple. Why won't you call it a temple? And Isaac, when he's giving the blessing to Jacob, the usurper, instead of Esau, he's also blind as the reason for why he gave it to Jacob. But then he then says, I knew exactly what I was doing. I knew exactly who it was. I didn't make a mistake. That's because it's referring to the Egyptian or origin story. And so yes, you're looking for a lawsuit against the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, with Nelson as the president of the church. And judges are the ones overseeing it. But like in the Egyptian story, the judges favor the LDS Church, Set, rather than Horus, the Jupiter guy here, the Mormon who is to free the Mormons from slavery and lead them to Zion and life evermore. O Babylon, we bid thee farewell. And so, yes, on the solstice, winter solstice, on the 21st of December, on Monday, that's when they are together. Now, Saturn has been very frustrating as they've been following the Exodus story of saying, no, I will not let your people go, will not let my people let me go, no, I won't let you go. That queen. And so we're waiting to see if the judges will do the right thing. In the Exodus story, coronavirus takes the power, the authority, the dynasty away from Pharaoh, such that Pharaoh loses. In the Egyptian story, Horus gives Set a salad with special sauce, of which he then gets impregnated with a branch. And the branch therefore proves that Horus is the rightful heir and Set loses. And so that corresponds with the porridge that is given to Esau, of which Jacob usurps the birthright blessing from Esau. And then is named Israel because God realizing, okay, you won the contest, you then get to be the father of the eventual Horus, who is to restore the kingdom of David. And I can't believe he choked on that. That was his perfect opportunity to let Mormons know he's a translator and to say that I am the fulfillment of the name meaning of Israel. I am the prince, and we shall establish the kingdom of God. But nope, didn't want to do that. Instead, he made a fool of himself instead. And so, yeah. And so I'm really hopeful. The 15th is also of interest, as is the 16th. The moon is with Jupiter and Saturn on the 16th. And so that's significant. But it's not until the 21st that Jupiter and Saturn are practically one. Because Jupiter at this point is now exiting Sagittarius and is now entering into the goat beast. Hail Satan! And so Saturn is right there with them. Previously, Saturn was all by itself by the goat beast's mouth. Now Jupiter is with Saturn. I've noticed at other previous spots that would normally be negative, such as at the sign in Scorpio, which represents the tree of knowledge of good and evil. If you remember your biblical story, there was a falling that took place. But the sun, no, or was it the moon? I think it was the sun, was there with Jupiter when he arrived at that sign, or that star in the heavens. And that's a big difference. Mars, Nelson, when he got there, oh man, was that a bad day for him. And then when Mars was at the mouth of the goat beast, oh wow, yay, the Nazi Hitler Youth. That's when he did the Mormon Youth Battalion. And so, yeah, I've been paying very close attention, but Saturn and Jupiter have been very frustrating to figure out. But, yeah, I'm hopeful, but that it's the 21st of December is not hopeful. So, we'll see. We do know that Trump is about ready to declare war on America to keep his job, to keep his power, as he's fired people from the Pentagon and replaced them with loyalists who already have made it known of their intentions for America. So, yay! We're all going to die. But then you go and Amanda goes and switches to April 8th is the second coming. Again, I hope you understand there is no such thing as a second coming. This is the first coming. It's always been the first coming. Christians got it wrong. Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, if they referred to it as a second coming, they got it wrong. Book of Mormon is coded. It is not talking about a second coming. The Book of Mormon tells us of the understanding of the pre-Israelites to the captivity, which is Egyptian, which is why I refer to Egyptian a lot. And so it's not the second coming, it's when Zion is supposed to be established. This is that death sign that you were referring to in the other one, where you say, is this the sign of his death that is spoken of before the second eclipse? No, this is on the third eclipse. This is the third eclipse. That's the sign of his death. He's not supposed to die because he's separated from the eclipse. The eclipse takes place in Pisces, whereas Jupiter is in the sacrificial ram constellation. And so that's the sign of his death. I was always concerned about that because he's not supposed to die. But now I understand. Oh, okay. Yeah, he's coming on Pegasus. And as Revelation talks about, flying from space. Hello, Earthlings. I am he who has come to destroy you. And then, of course, Rapturepalooza has apparently been filmed in the future, and they already shot him dead. So, he's not coming. That's what the movie showed. Sorry, guys. God's dead, too. And so, you're wondering about the crucifixion. The crucifixion needs to be understood outside of Christianity, because they got it all wrong. When John the Baptist says, I am unworthy to unloose his shoe sandals. If you look at the Greek translation correctly into English, he's referring to the crucifixion. It's not the Roman cross where he dies and then is buried in a tomb. That's Horus, or Cyrus, sorry. He mixes up his characters. Matthew mixes up the characters. Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John mix up the characters. And so when you understand the Egyptian story, that Set is the one who murders his brother. First nails him in a coffin, sends him up to the Tower of Babel in Lebanon, Beirut, Lebanon. And then, okay, so I don't do anything with this. And then ISIS sends out missionaries to bring him back to Egypt, the gathering of Israel, and restores him to life. And thus is why we have the sacrament. When Set then finds out that he's alive and chops up his body into different 14 pieces. And got 30 minutes to finish. Chops up his body into 14 pieces, and then the missionaries get sent back out to gather the scattered Israel back to Egypt, and then conceives Horus. And so thus Horus, as Moses, as the keys of the gathering of Israel, it's all part and parcel of the same thing. And that's why the sacrament is practiced in churches, is that it's a reminder to Christians, anointed ones, that among them there's supposed to be a Horus, a Christ, who is to be raised up to rescue them and gather the elect from around the world to Zion, where they are safe and secure from Trump's wrath. And so that's April 8th, 2024, is that final moment when Zion is established and the gathering commences, as the wicked would then be destroyed. You know, the gathering of the wheat from the tares, the separation of the wheat kernel from the chaff, etc. And so the crucifixion, the shoe sandal that John is talking about, is the Egyptian ankh. That's the shoe sandal. But in Egyptian, it has the meaning of eternal life. Egyptologists don't want to put eternal with it. I don't know why, because that's what it means. It's always afterlife, not life, afterlife, thus eternal life, the life after earth. And so it's exaltation in the afterlife, in the glory of the Son of Amun-Ra, which Joseph Smith got correctly, calling the celestial kingdom the glory of the Son, the highest degree, where you continue to have sex for all eternity. And so that's what the crucifixion refers to. It's not the Roman cross where people die. It's life after death. It's the ascension of Osiris. And so Osiris, his ascension is portrayed by the Dej pillar carved from the tree that grew in Lebanon, in Beirut, where Osiris's coffin rested on the shores. And the king then carved that into a Dej pillar in memorial for Osiris. And that became Osiris's symbol. And then it's topped with the Ankh, and then on top of the Ankh, and typically the Ankh would have hands holding it up. If you remember the story of Moses, Moses would go into battle, lift up his arms, and would need to have servants help him lift his arms so that they would win in battle. Otherwise, when his arms fell, oh, the Israelites are losing. Oh, we're winning, losing, winning. So great jokes for that. But all part and parcel of the symbolism as it's holding up Amun-Ra, the sun god, as he, Osiris, ascends to become Amun-Ra, Father Amun. Book of Mormon, or Doctrine and Covenants, refers to Son Amun as Jesus Christ, so that Christians can know what he's talking about. But he's referring to the Mormon Christ, who restores the kingdom of David and frees the Mormons from their slavery in Utah and gathers the elect from around the world as the world descends into utter chaos and violence. And so it's not a crucifixion. He's not going to be hung on a cross and murdered. And that needs to be understood. This is where the gathering takes place. The destruction of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, the destruction of America, completed as everybody's in chaos, and Zion has been established and the gathering commences. It's going to descend into chaos, if not this year, by the end of this year, before January 20th. Trump will not leave office. He's already setting up for war. So whether or not Biden thinks he's going to establish a new capital of America in a Democrat-friendly nation or state, I have no idea what he's planning. But Trump will not let him occupy the White House. That much is clear. So we'll see what happens with that. But by April 8th, 2024, it's time for the gathering. Zion needs to be built by then. And so there needs to be an exodus prior to then in order for Zion to be in the process of being built in order to take in the gathering of the elect from the four quarters of the earth. The sons of Horus, for example, are the four quarters of the earth. If you don't know who they are, facsimile number 1, they're the 4 animals and 1 human in the canopic jars underneath the lion altar, not couch. And so yeah, Have I explained this? Did I detract from the original question? Because we still got a lot more comments. We've got 25 minutes to do it. And then you say, please see comment on corrected second day of darkness, which I already went over. I don't know what you mean by that. Helaman. See, American Civil War is preparing. And so I don't fully grasp what you're trying to say. Helaman, probably, yeah. Hold on, let me check voice to audio. Travis Wayne good, so. Okay. So let me save this. Comment replies, mostly for Amanda, part 1. Alright, so let's see, we wanted to go to Helaman, chapter 14. And 2 to 6 and 20 to 27. And behold, I said unto them, behold, I give unto you a sign. Yeah, because this is Samuel the Lamanite. 5 years more cometh, then behold, then the Son of Man, Son of God, to redeem all those who believe on his name. Okay. Sign at the time of his coming. So yeah, this is the sign of his death that Samuel's referring to here, not the sign of his birth. Because this is when he redeems. This is the gathering of Israel to Zion. The sign at the time of his coming, there shall be great lights in heavens. This is the birth one. There shall be no darkness. Let's see. 2 days and a night, and it shall not be darkened. That's his birth. That was 2017. So he first talks about 2024, and then he goes to 2017 with the new star rising. There'll be many signs and wonders in heaven. Yeah. In 2027, I said unto you a sign of his death. 2024, the sun shall be darkened, refuse to give its light. And the moon, also the moon and the stars, there shall be no light upon the face of the land. Because the moon is a new moon, which is dark already, and it's over the sun, making the sun dark. For the space of 3 days. So that's actually the third day of darkness, is the death sign. Thunderings and lightnings. And so, yeah, that's also interesting, is because Samuel doesn't talk about what Trump will be doing as King Jacob of the kingmen of the Nephites, which he first tries to go to war, but then gets chased out. But the states are broken up as a result, such that there is no government of America anymore. And thus, there's upheavals. These are natural disasters that he's talking about. But is that a symbol for civil war? That's what we need to find out and wait for the results. Yeah. Does that explain it for you? Samuel is talking about the signs of 2017 and 2024 prior to them occurring, which they do occur in the Book of Mormon, of which the beginning in 1 Nephi chapter 1 says, hey, this is all going to start in 2017. So here we have Helaman, where Samuel, which name of God, which is Ammon, is talking about. And so then 3 Nephi 1, Revelation 5, 8, and 9. So none of these are the great solstice that you're referring to as great. It's just Jupiter and Saturn together as one. Hopefully, it means the judges side with this Mormon who's suing the LDS Church. Let's go to Revelation Bibliothèque. It's 5, 8, and 9. Taking the book, 420 beasts fell down before the Lamb, having every one of them harps and golden vials full of odors, eau de toilette, which are the prayers of the saints. And they sung a new song, Thou art worthy to take the book and to open the seals thereof. Joseph Smith also talks about a new song also. Elder Baxter from the MTC, who was my missionary companion, and then was with me as a companion in our last month together out in New York, wanted to be the one to write and compose this new song. I think I've already done it. I was in a stake conference back before the Bishop Hammond told me not to come to church if I was going to continue to say that the Book of Mormon is the keystone of our religion. But I was just sitting there and got the lyrics and had the tune in my head, and so I was putting them to music right there during conference, and the Relief Society president, who took Karen and ours wedding picture at the door of the Salt Lake Temple, where we were sealed in room number 17, with the inverted pentagram at the keystone of it. And she saw that and went, "Oh wow, you just composed that? Yeah. Can I see it?" And I showed her, and she was confused, but I was talking about one mighty and strong, which I don't think she understood. But so yeah, I'm not. No, this is not that. I'm hoping that the solstice on the 21st is when the judge, Amun-Ra, says, Horus, Mormon, you win against the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, who is Set, King Set, Satan, the adversary in Hebrew. So, but that's an awful long time away. And so, what do you, No Gen Millie probably won't X the gassing of protesters? What do you mean? Coming as a SM that served under his command, and I'm assuming you're referring to when you later, not I think today or yesterday, talking about having served in Afghanistan. I think this is what you're referring to here, but that didn't make sense when you wrote this. And so you're saying you can testify that this is probably true? Listen here, soldier. Don't testify something that probably is true. You either testify or you say you don't know. Sir. You can't testify that it's probably true. So is the prodigal son Trump? No. He's not the prodigal son. It's referring to the afterlife. It's not about the second coming. Yeah, don't, no, you can't do this to me. This is my channel. No, it is not a form of socialism light. Law of consecration, as understood by the Book of Mormon, talking about priestcraft, condemning it, and saying, no, this is how it's supposed to be. It is not socialism. Socialism, you don't own property. Law of consecration, you own property. So it's not socialism. If Brigham Young practiced the United Order where they didn't own property, yes, he was practicing a form of communism. Communism is different than socialism. Socialism is a government of the society where nobody owns property. If you're unfamiliar with that concept, John Lennon sings the song Imagine. He's talking about socialism. But it has never existed on this earth. It cannot work. You need a governing body for larger groups of people. Even for smaller groups, you at least have fathers and parents. It's not socialism. It never has existed, never can exist. There's no way for everybody to mutually agree to do what's necessary to keep everybody surviving. Socialism cannot work. If people claim socialism, but they're talking about having leadership, then they're lying to you, deceiving you, or getting the definition wrong. It's not socialism. Communism is a socialist republic. That's where you have a representative government body over the society to tell them what to do, but no ownership of property. This is why communism is evil. No, law of consecration has never been known historically to have been practiced. It is mentioned in scriptures as having been practiced, but we have no archaeological evidence other than the recording of its existence. We don't know how it was functioned, how it was implemented. 10 minutes. But the Book of Mormon tells us you labor for Zion. You don't labor for money. So the law of consecration has no monetary system. It's based on labor, but it's labor for Zion. It's not for representatives. And so, yes, I can see where you're thinking socialism light, but people get to own property under the law of consecration. But the thing is that an individual like myself, I can't make my food, my clothing, my shelter, my communication, my transportation, all of this, and do what I want to do, which was what this channel was set up to do, was be for my business, which is my decipherment of Paleo-Hebrew and my decipherment of Egyptian petroglyphs. But the church shut me down on my other channel, shut me down on my website, and so this ended up being a warning channel also. But I can't do all of that myself. It just can't be done. I need other people. But it doesn't work for smaller groups. Because if you have a small group of people, you're all going to be forced to do something you're not going to want to do. Like, I may have to spend my life farming or building or making clothes, and other people, the few other people, would also have to be doing one of those other things as well. So Adam and Eve, they have Cain and Abel. Abel is in charge of the flocks, and Cain is in charge of the farming, the gardening, or the vegetation, the fruits and vegetables, which is actually switched because Osiris was in charge of the fruits and vegetables, and Set was in charge of the flocks. But doesn't matter. And so when you have large groups of people, the law of consecration is perfect. All you need are storehouses. And so if I enjoy designing and making women's clothing, which is what I wanted to do as a child, as I've told those videos before, then I would be provided with all the material, the sewing machine, the serger, anything and everything I need to make that happen. If I need to produce it on a mass scale, because there's a lot of women in need of clothing at various sizes and various colors and styles, then yes, I would be provided with a mass production equipment to make that happen as quickly as possible to fill up the storehouses. And then once the storehouses are full, then I can go back to just doing one at a time, as no mass production is necessary anymore until the supply gets to a certain level. Then it gets filled up to complete that process. But once that's established, the amount of clothing necessary, then yeah, we can adjust as needed. But that's for everything. And when the more people you have, the more variety of people doing different things. And so you'll have people that are interested in growing food. You'll have clothing makers, building people, construction workers, and artists of all types to enhance society. And we can have people in the humanities because every other need is taken care of. And if people don't like to be laborers in the fields for farming, that's okay. They can be automated. We don't have to fear they're taking our jobs. We don't need to worry about that no more. And all of that's taken care of under the law of consecration. There is freedom. There isn't forced labor under communism, wrongly called socialism. And so, yes, the more people in the society, the more prosperous it will work under consecration, because it's not based on money. Money destroys all economies because people get greedy and slavery ensues and blah blah blah, and homelessness and all that. Law of consecration, when practiced correctly, eliminates poverty, not by slaughtering them as Utah wants to do, but by making them prosperous as everyone else is prosperous. So alrighty. So yeah, don't be throwing incorrect definitions of law of consecration or socialism or whatever at me. Stopped when they went west. Yeah, well, Brigham Young had something to alter with that. He put in the tithing scripture saying that Joseph Smith went back to tithing after his failed bank. He was in jail, and so he didn't write it. I just so frustrating, the amount of damage Brigham and Heber caused. Yeah, they were practicing a law of consecration. It just was difficult But yeah, there's some problems with record keeping by the Brighamite Willard Richards, who was the one who murdered Joseph. I have to actually do research on that. I haven't gotten to that part yet. The one about Heber C. Kimball that I started in the other video, it's almost halfway finished saving. Man, I've got to end this video. But that was finally going over Heber C. Kimball's life, where I found out he was a polygamist before joining the church. So no, don't tell me what I want to know. I don't want to know. So okay, you don't follow astrology, but you're talking about the heavens weird. So I don't fully grasp what you're trying to say, unless you're learning for the first time. Yeah, aboutism, that's one of the many multitude of fallacies. Ad hominem is the famous gaslighter of Mormon apologetic groups. But it's not just aboutism. There's a whole list of fallacies that you can look up online and see all of them that are being used. And so, yeah, then you talk about your growing up in the church, serving in Afghanistan, and I'm kind of wondering, you referred to Abraham in the Islamic spelling, or the Arabic spelling, and your last name seems to suggest Arabic as well. And then you're from serving in Afghanistan. I hope you're not a fraudulent account, that you are an actual person as you claim to be. But, yeah. I'm assuming you are, so I'm commenting as if you are. You know about the young woman's medallion. So that does give credibility to you. And then, oh man, I've got to quit. They suspect about 2 years at best, and even they say it will take a few years to complete rollout. I'm thinking you're talking about the vaccine. I'm gonna cut it short here, even though I've only got 3 more of yours left. Yeah, now you're getting into Passover. No. Okay, we're gonna stop there. I'll do a part 3 some other time in the future.